Global TV News Express. President Bola Tinubu embarks on Japan-Brazil visits to deepen economic ties. In business, federal government pledges to build $1 trillion economy by 2030. On the foreign scene, United Kingdom's Tamar urges Putin to show seriousness at Trump talks. And in sports, D Tigers defeat Madagascar in AfroBasket opener. Hello and a very warm welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Express here on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I'm Wuyi Agumofwegbe, reminding our viewers that Global TV is on DSTV channels 365 and Star Times 276. President Bola Tinubu will today begin a state visit to Japan for the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, starting from August 20 to the 22nd, before heading to Brazil from August 24 to 25 with a brief stop in Dubai. In Japan, he is expected to join other world leaders to discuss Africa's economic transformation, private investments, as well as human security, while engaging Japanese investors in bilateral meetings. During his visit to Brazil, the president will meet President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, attend a business forum, and explore agreements to deepen Nigeria-Brazil relations. The federal government has imposed a 7-year moratorium on the establishment of new federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. It cited the proliferation of underutilized institutions, overstretched resources, and a drop in academic quality as the main reasons for the decision. The decision was approved at the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu, following a presentation by Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa. Mukhtar Kasim completes the story.
Briefing State House correspondent after the meeting, Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa says the challenge in Nigeria's tertiary education system is no longer access but inefficient duplication, poor infrastructure, inadequate staffing, and dwindling enrollment in many existing institutions. The minister noted that 199 universities received fewer than 100 applications through the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board last year, with 34 recording 0 applications. He says out of 295 polytechnics nationwide, many had fewer than 99 applicants, with 219 colleges of education also posted poor enrollment figures, including 64 with no applications at all.
Today, in our country, access to tertiary education is no longer an issue. What we have now is duplication of new federal tertiary institutions. And what we're seeing is significant reduction in the carrying capacity of each of these institutions, tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education.
The Council also approved 4 major proposals from the Ministry of Power in a renewed drive to reform and strengthen the nation's national electric grid. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu said the first approval was the release of 13 billion naira for compensations on the right-of-way acquisitions under the Lagos Industrial Transmission Project, funded through a $238 million development loan from the Japan International Cooperation Agency.
The request submitted was approval for the sum of 13 billion naira. The Lagos-Ogun Industrial Hub Transmission Project is being funded through a $238 million development loan from Japanese International Cooperation Agency.
He stressed that stable electricity is vital for industrialization, job creation, and sustainable economic development. He added that the remaining 3 approval proposals relate to the procurement of new power transformers is to upgrade the aging national grid. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
Well, thank you, Mukhtar. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has advocated the need for cattle ranching as part of measures to address the perennial conflicts between herders and farmers. He stated these while addressing a press conference in Abuja ahead of the maiden African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit aimed at strengthening continental security collaboration. Our security and defense correspondent, Kekalamo Okere, now reports.
The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, observed that to address emerging threats of perennial conflict between the herders and farmers, there is need for cattle ranching to help address some of the security challenges bedeviling the African continent. He emphasized that ranching has a lot of advantage for the owner of animals, hence it should be embraced without hindrance.
If you don't want to call it ranch, call it whatever it is, but provide an area where they don't need to move around. Because once they move around, they spend energy, they are smaller, they don't produce so much milk for you to do. But when you ranch them, you get the best out of it. So it's a win-win thing for all of us. And I want us as Nigerians to look at this so that we can deal with this issue. Because one of the basic security challenges we're having is this issue of farmer herders issue. We must be able to address it as Nigerians. And
the CDS condemned insinuation in some quarters that he was advocating for ranching and therefore asking the government to take people's land. He identified critical threats confronting Africa, including terrorism from Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab and ISIS affiliates, rising banditry and kidnapping, piracy in the Gulf of Guinea and emerging cyber attack on defense system. The defense chief noted that the maiden African Chief of Defense Staff Summit, scheduled for August 25 to 27, 2025, will provide African nations with a platform to sit down, look at their challenges as African brothers and sisters. Kekalamo Okere, Global Television News.
The federal government says it is set to acquire munitions, precision bombs and rockets worth $346 million from the United States to boost the fight against insecurity. U.S. State Department has given approval for the deal with the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, confirming that the American Congress has been notified. The arms purchase comes as Nigeria grapples with widespread security threats, including banditry, insurgency, separatist agitations, and militancy. The House of Representatives has begun an investigation into over 1 trillion naira Nigeria Community Action for Resilience and Economic Stimulus Program, better known as NG Cares. The probe follows concerns that the impact of the social intervention and palliatives is not being felt by vulnerable Nigerians. National Assembly correspondent Aniete Patrick has details. We'll bring you those details later. Voter registration in the Federal Capital Territory is set to go digital as the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, begins online registration next week. Federal Capital Territory Resident Electoral Commissioner Aminu Idris made the announcement during a consultative meeting with the media in Abuja. Here is Topsy Gemba's report.
The Resident Electoral Commissioner for the FCT, Aminu Idris, says the online voter registration will kick off next week, following by a physical capturing a week later. He explained that the meeting with the media is to create awareness and encourage residents to take part in the exercise.
The exercise will provide a window for registrants who wish to replace damaged or lost PVCs, transfer their registration within the FCT or interstate. There is provision for voters who seek to correct errors on their PVCs by updating their information and for collection of the 93,868 uncollected PVCs in the FCT.
Also speaking, the head of litigation, Barrister Franca Osiagede, reminded residents that INEC is empowered to register voters up to 90 days before campaign begins. She outlined penalties for electoral offences.
Don't have more than one. It's one voter's card per citizen. One voter's card per citizen. Please share this message across.
The head of ICT and voter registration, Festus Asien, highlighted the importance of the online process.
This UI we talked about earlier on, 2 of them. I will encourage you to please take note of this portal, so you can also help us to propagate this message. All those activities I've mentioned before, if you have this at your fingertip with your smartphone, you can perform all these activities without you going to INEC office.
Administrative Secretary Akimbola Olajinjoye noted that INEC is working with the National Population Commission to ensure the voter registry is updated to reflect only eligible living voters.
Most times, turnout at display exercise is very extremely low. People don't even come out to check. But this is the only medium that we have as INEC for us to know those people are dead. And you know how it is. You can't just remove people's name from register because they have not come to vote.
Though no end date has been set aside for the CVR, INEC says campaigns for the FCT Area Council election next year are expected to commence no later than 150 days to the election as stipulated by INEC. Topsy Gimba reporting.
Oh, thank you, Topsy. The National Orientation Agency has launched a 2-week nationwide enlightenment campaign aimed at deepening citizens' understanding of government policies, strengthening national values, enhancing security awareness, and promoting Nigeria's identity. Director General of the agency, Larry Isa Onilu, said the initiative is expected to reach all 36 states, the Federal Capital Territory, and the 774 local government areas of the country. Aniete Patrick has more.
Flagging of the campaign in Abuja, the Director General of National Orientation Agency, Lanre Isa Onilu, says the drive is a coordinated national awakening designed to address pressing gaps in public awareness, harmful practices, and misinformation that threaten national unity and progress. According to him, the program will run on 5 thematic areas, namely the National Enlightenment on Government Policies, Flood Mitigation and Disaster Preparedness Drive, amongst others.
It is commencing by Wednesday next week, and it will last for 15 days. And we are focusing on 5 thematic areas. We are conducting a national enlightenment on government policies, programs, and activities. 2, flood mitigation and disaster preparedness. 3, national security awareness.
That the national security awareness will mobilize citizens to play active roles in safeguarding their communities by reporting suspicious activities and cooperating with security agencies. He says the Nigerian Identity Project will revive respect for national symbols.
Nigerian Identity Project and the National Symbols Campaign, which are part of our flagship program of the Nigerian Identity Project, the National Values Charter. We are saying this is not just a campaign. It is a coordinated national awakening that touches the very heart of our identity, safety, values, and development.
However, the campaign will be implemented through press conferences, community dialogues, market and schools outreaches, religious and civic gatherings, as well as multilingual media messages on radio, television, and social media.
The Benue State government has intensified security in parts of Ukum, a local government area, by deploying security personnel to 3 communities to enhance security measures. The communities are Chito Afia and Mudi. Our correspondent in Benue State, Felicity Indiri, reports.
Kum local government and other areas of Benue State, Nigerians' food baskets have accounted for high percentage of yam production and other food supplies until armed herders' invasion and banditry became the order of the day, leaving the industrious people independent and helpless. Today, the scars of conflict remain fresh, with at least 15 settlements in Ukum local government counting to bear the brunt of sustained attacks. With the uncertainty, the joint military operations of the Operation Wildstroke has intensified operations in the Axis, resulting in the recent rescuing of 11 kidnapped victims. A move appreciated by the people, including the council chairman, Jonathan Modi, who led the military team on its strategic assessment tour in the area to public infrastructures destroyed as a result of attacks.
As you can see, yesterday we deployed in Afia, which happens to be the current senator's village. You know, the people have been crying, and you know, even if you go to that place, yeah, you will see a lot of people there, but they live in fear. They live in fear. People are scared, and you know, they are being attacked on market days.
Residents in the area have promised greater cooperation with the security personnel to enable them succeed, express strong desire to live normal lives again, where their safety is assured and essential services restored.
I know our chairman will all leave us like that. He will be assisting us, so the much we can do for people. Chairman, I thought maybe we will call attention of the divisional police officer so that he will be cooperation with them.
Without security, whatever project you have done will be useless. Even if we build schools, build roads, build hospitals, provide water, electricity, and there's no security, there will be nobody to benefit from those amenities. And so, with the presence of security at Afia today, we believe that all our markets that are no longer functioning will come back to life.
The development of security operatives is part of renewed efforts to eliminate criminal elements to strengthen peace and security of most communities in Sankara Axis of the state affected by insecurity. In the meantime, stakeholders have called for a coordinated national and state effort to restore stability, rebuild lives shattered by years of violence, and help affected communities regain dignity. In Makurdi, Felicity Ndere reporting for Global TV News.
We appreciate you for your reporting, Felicity. You're watching the live broadcast of News Express. When the rest of the broadcast returns, United Kingdom's Starmer urges Putin to show seriousness at Trump talks. We'll have those details and more for you shortly. Stay with us. Let's now turn to business. President Bola Tinubu has restated his administration's goal of building a $1 trillion economy by 2030 with a minimum annual growth rate of 7% by 2027. The president, who presided over the Federal Executive Council meeting, approved a series of landmark policies and projects covering finance, power, education, and transport. Business correspondent Kikelomo Okere completes the story.
Addressing journalists after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, says President Tinubu charged the economic team to optimize public savings and improve spending efficiency to fund investment-led growth. He noted that.
So the President did emphasize and recommit to building a $1 trillion economy by 2020. And in order to achieve this, he focused on the fact that by 2027, we need to be growing by at least 7% per annum to achieve that rapid, sustained, inclusive growth and achieve the target that he has set.
The Minister of Finance also announced FEC approval for $125 million Islamic Development Bank financing for road projects in Umuahia and Aba, as well as phased refinancing plan to settle 4 trillion naira in outstanding electricity sector debt within the next 4 weeks.
The Islamic Development Bank's financing of $125 million in support of infrastructure in Abia State, really a road network in the cities of Umuahia and Aba, about 35 kilometers in one case, and about 120 6 kilometers in another case. I also presented a memo on the all-important refinancing of the electricity sector outstanding obligations.
He also reveals that a total of 493 billion naira was also approved for two major infrastructure projects, the upgraded of Kano-Katsina Road and the construction of a new Kata Bridge in Lagos. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News.
Let's go to the foreign scene now. United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on Russian President Vladimir Putin to approve he is serious about peace when he meets Donald Trump in Alaska on Friday in what could be a pivotal moment in efforts to end the Ukraine war. His comments came after talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at Downing Street, which both leaders described as an important display of unity ahead of high-stakes summit. The European Union has dispatched 2 water bomber planes to Spain for the first time under its disaster assistance mechanism as the country battles wildfires amid a record heat wave. Spain's Interior Minister Fernando Grando Marlaska confirmed the request for additional resources after thousands were evacuated, including 700 residents from the western city of Cáceres and 3 people, including 2 volunteer firefighters, who lost their lives. Egypt says it is stepping up efforts with Qatar and the United States to revive a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal aimed at ending the fighting in Gaza. At a press briefing in Cairo, Egyptian Prime Minister Badr Abdelati confirmed talks are ongoing with both Hamas and Israel. And now time to turn to sports for you. Paris Saint-Germain have claimed their first UEFA Super Cup, beating Tottenham Hotspur 4-3 on penalties after a 2-2 draw in Udine. Spurs led 2-0 through Van der Ven and Romero before late goals from Lee Kang and Gonçalo Ramos before extra time forced them, with Nuno Mendes netting the decisive sport kick. Nigeria's D Tigers have opened their 2025 AfroBaskets campaign with a 77-59 win over Madagascar in Luanda. Caleb Agada led scoring with 22 points, while Stan Okoye added 13 as Nigeria pulled away after a narrow 38-37 halftime lead. The 2015 champions next face defending champions Tunisia on August 15. Nigeria Football Federation has thrown its weight behind the maiden edition of the Sam Okwaroji Under-16 annual All-Secondary School Soccer Championship set to kick off on November 8, 2025. Technical Director of the Nigeria Football Federation, Augustine Eguavoen, said this while addressing journalists in Abuja. And now time to end the Global TV News Express, but first we'll take a look at some of our big stories. President Bola Tinubu will today begin a state visit to Japan for the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development from August 20 to 22, before heading to Brazil from August 24 to 25. In business, President Bola Tinubu has restated his administration's goal of building a $1 trillion economy by 2030. On the foreign scene, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on Russian President Vladimir Putin to prove he is serious about peace when he meets Donald Trump in Alaska tomorrow. And finally in sports, the Tigers have opened their 2025 Afro-Basketball campaign with a 77-59 win over Madagascar in Luanda. And that's News Express for you. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can engage with us across all social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG as well as other handles as you now see on your screen. I'm Uyi Agumofwebe, thanking you very specially for watching, and I'll see you again.